Choo-Choo Charles is the game where Thomas the Tank Engine has gone wild. I'm sure everyone has at least seen or knows what this train is. Like many other horror game characters, this became instantly recognisable, like Slender, Huggy Wuggy or Siren Head. But is this game actually any good? Do people even know what this game is like? Well, shove some coal into your engine, prepare to collect 8 pages, turn out the lights, and get ready to decommission a rogue spider-legged train as we take a look at Choo-Choo Charles. Our story starts off with an old friend calling us and telling us that he needs some help on an island, and that it would be good for your museum because it's about to shut down.
Yeah, I got a bit of a spider problem.
I'll bring the Mortine.
I don't know how close we're going to be after all this. So we head out to the island in no less than a rowboat and get told to hunt down a spider train in a train with a gun on the back. So what could go wrong? From this point you'll travel around the island searching for quests to do, as well as scrap metal to upgrade your train, new weapons, as well as keeping an eye out for Charles as he scours the countryside looking for you. I'm not too sure what I want to talk about first, so we'll jump into the graphics. And they are really good. And really, before we get into this review, I should point out that this is made by one guy. That's right, just one guy alone. So anything that I say that is a criticism towards this game, do take it with a grain of salt, because yeah, this was just one guy. This is not a AAA title. This was just made by one guy. So yeah, the graphics, as you can clearly see, they are really good. The only part that's lacking is probably the characters themselves. They don't look the greatest. They also don't have a mouth that moves when they talk.
If you can get that chest open.
But that aside, the scenery is absolutely beautiful here. If you also look close enough, you can see that there's this sketchy style on some of the stuff, making it look like a children's colouring book, and I really like that. I delved a little bit into the background of this character and perhaps where it came from, and I did find this book, so I imagine that it's taken some inspiration from this. So it turns out this book is actually written by Stephen King and it's a part of his Dark Tower trilogy, and I'm not going to go any further down this rabbit hole. I just thought that was very interesting and I think it definitely inspired this game. But anyway, back to the game. So to add this sort of sketchy style to it is really cool and a good nod to that. And I think I would have liked to have seen this sketchy style more utilized, but again, this is just one guy, so probably would have been a lot of work for him to do, but could also have taken away for the more realistic look that this game is going for. So your main objective here is to upgrade your train and kind of get ready for the final battle against Charles. Now, there's only a few things you can upgrade here, being the attack, defense and speed of the train, and you're also going to use a lot of your scrap metal that you collect to repair the train as you get attacked by Charles. There are 4 weapons to collect and you probably don't need all of them. The one I would recommend is definitely the rocket launcher. That one does the most damage and you'll definitely need it, as well as the flamethrower, which acts as something to slow down Charles when he's in pursuit after you. And on to how you're going to get most of this scrap. You'll have to do quests, and the quests here are probably my biggest disappointment with this game because they're all just fetch quests. A woman needs you to go find her pickles.
I need my pickles!
A witch needs you to swim across to an island and pick her up a fish.
Making a fresh stew.
There's a guy that wants you to collect 8 pages. And this guy wants you to put his house out, and he just cannot seem to walk up to the tank that is above his house and literally do it himself. I am somewhat glad this game doesn't take itself too seriously, but I do wonder what it would be like if it did.
Using the water tank to put out the fire. Pure genius.
But there are better missions, and those ones by far are the stealth ones. You need to go into these camps that are controlled by these cultists, and you need to sneak in, go underground, far away from your train with the weapon, and steal these eggs. Now, there is a bit of a problem with these, and that being you can literally just run through them. So that's what I did most of the time. But yeah, I would have really liked it if they had tightened up this mechanic and made it so that maybe you died in 1 to 2 shots or something, so that you really had to be stealthy here. Speaking of the cultists, they are the only other enemy in the game besides Charles himself. And to me, these are the perfect creepy companion for him. I really like the look of these guys. Yeah, they seem to be like some sort of cultists or maybe some trainer otaku's gone wrong, but I really like them. They are protecting the eggs that you need to collect, and there's 3. And when you go to these NPCs throughout the map, there is some of them that will give you the quest to go find the egg. Once you have these 3 eggs, you need to take them to a shrine, combining them and turning Charles into a hellish form of himself, which is the final boss fight of this game. Thinking about it more, I think that he didn't lay these eggs because it doesn't make a lot of sense that that would happen if he laid them. But anyway, I think I'm thinking about it a little too much. The main bad guy, who you've heard about throughout this whole thing, turns out that he wasn't a bad guy. He was actually a good guy trying to stop this whole thing. But what's with the masks and the creepy outfits then, if you hired these guys and they're working for you? Anyway, the game ends with us racing around the map with Charles in a very hot pursuit. And as you can probably guess, it ends as you would expect. And that is the end of Choo-Choo Charles. Now, I do have some final thoughts here and some thoughts on what I'd like to see in the future for this game. So we'll start with my final thoughts, and for me at least, this game I just really adore. It has become a real guilty pleasure of mine.
Before we even knew it, we weren't even drinking in the daytime anymore. We were just playing with that train.
Every time I play through it, I just get 100% enjoyment out of it. There isn't really one aspect in this game that I find tedious or annoying. I just love running around the countryside in my little train, fighting off Charles. And it has a good level of fear of running into Charles, and I like that. I think that they could have amplified that a little bit more because you don't run into him all that often, and definitely playing through it a second time, it feels a little bit scripted when you're going to run into him, but besides that, you know, yeah, I just love everything here, and my hat really goes off to this guy that made this game because, yeah, just for one guy to do this, it is absolutely amazing. Now, as for the price, I think $30 is probably a bit much for this one. And again, it's only a short game at probably 4 to 5 hours, I think, on your first playthrough. You're probably going to get faster as you play through it a second time. But yeah, I would say probably pick this up on sale, and definitely do pick it up because it's just one of those games, and I think this will become sort of a timeless classic that everyone will enjoy. Now, on to my future thoughts for what I'd like to see here, and I'm not talking about the game itself. I'm talking like 5-10 years into the future, because this game is complete in my eyes. You know, obviously I'd love to see certain aspects like the characters get an overhaul or something, but realistically we're not going to get that, and that's not really what I want to comment about. What I'm thinking is this game in the future will probably get a re-release or a remake or something, probably like Slender the Arrival, I imagine. So I would love to see a really fleshed out story for Choo-Choo Charles, and you know, maybe have like 10 hours of gameplay, but really flesh out the story of where this train came from, and maybe have us set in a children's book or something like that. The other way that I can see them taking this game is at the end we actually see that there are hundreds of eggs. Now, I don't know if Charles laid these because I think he's a guy train, but anyway, I'm probably thinking about that a bit too much again. But what we could see with a Choo-Choo Charles 2 is actually have multiplayer. I think something like Lethal Company or Barotrauma would be really cool. Have a good amount of players, and then a bigger train where some people are in charge of certain things. You know, you could have someone loading in the coal, you could have someone navigating, somebody running the guns, all of that. I think it could also go that way if we get a second one. And, you know, both aspects I'd love to see explored because, again, this has become a real guilty pleasure of mine, and yeah, I just really adore this game. But anyway, guys, I'm River Raven. This has been my review of Choo-Choo Charles. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Please leave me a like, leave me a comment with your thoughts on Choo-Choo Charles, and I'll reply to all of you down there. If you've enjoyed this, please consider subscribing. Also, I have another YouTube where I unbox figures. It's going quite well. I usually upload once a week. So if that's to your fancy, I'll leave that linked up below as well as up above. If not, I'll see you guys on the next one.